So like I rightly said, what we share here are very practicable. They are not theoretical elements. They are things that is important you know that there are things you must apply in your business as a salesperson for you to be able to thrive. Tonight we are looking at a very important topic, how to deal with rejection, some kind of rejections and how to deal with them. Some rejections in selling real estate and how to deal with them. I believe everybody, I mean, everybody I've come across, please mute your mic when you join us. Hello, who is there, please? Okay, great. So everybody, almost every salesperson I've come across have this singular issue to deal with, and that issue is simply the issue of rejection, the issue of dealing with objections. And tonight we are going to look at some of those objections. There are so many of them, but we are going to start with some of the most basic that we encounter every day. And the purpose of this, our training, is to build you guys to a point where you guys can actually become consistent in your sales. What that means is you can now be able to predict that this month you're going to do this number, this month you're going to do this number. It's predictable. You're no longer leaving your faith in the industry to chance. You're no longer leaving it to hope. You're no longer leaving it to wish. You're now in total control of your fate, of your destiny as a real estate salesperson. And the good thing is, it is possible, because for many of you who are still yet to understand that selling real estate is not a chance, it's not a luck, it's not a hope, it's not a wish thing, it's a strategic thing. For many of you who don't know that, you keep approaching the business with the mindset of, I just wish, I just hope, I just believe. In as much as those factors are very much important for the spiritual side of what we are doing, but you must first of all be found diligent in your work, which means you need to understand the strategies of work. For many people, dealing with rejection seems like a Herculean task, a journey many of them are not willing to embark on because of, the kind of thought it brings to their mind. But I'm here tonight to tell you that rejections are not actually your problem. Rejections are part of the whole process. And in fact, a life without rejection, it will be a boring life. A life without rejection will be a life that wouldn't challenge you. A life without rejection is a life that will leave you in your comfort zone for life, and that will not necessarily make you to grow. That will not necessarily help to stretch you. Remember, the human mind is a very malleable, it's a very elastic material. It doesn't break. It just keeps expanding. And what putting yourself in position where you get rejection helps you to achieve is that it helps you to expand your mind. It helps you to begin to understand that there is more to this thing I'm doing, right? It helps you to understand that if I'm faced with this rejection and I'm feeling this way, then it means that those that are actually making headway in the industry have understood and mastered the ways to navigate their way out of these objections. And that is where you need to come to in order to also become like them. To call your mind back, I told you guys, 20% of the realtors in the country make 80% of the money. And these are some of the things that many of these realtors know that you yourself, you don't know. So before I go into look at some of the objections and how you can be able to overcome them, I would like to tell you some of the core elements you need to arm yourself with at the back of your mind before you set out to understand and even handle these objections. You need to understand this formula, which is, you need to understand, you need to always have this at the back of your mind. This acronym is LUPPF. Write it down somewhere, LUPPF. It's an acronym that will help you on this your journey towards dealing with and handling objections. It's a formula my senior colleague taught me, and it has worked and worked well. The acronym for this formula is LUPPF. You must not always be in a position where you are not having this at the back of your mind, because this is what you're going to use to handle almost every objection that's going to come your way. The first LU there means listening to understand. Listening and understanding. That's what LU means. When you are faced with a prospect, with a client, your job is to listen to understand and not to listen to reply. Please, community manager, the last week Thursday, I asked you guys to take down some notes for me and send to me. Many of you didn't send it. Tonight, please don't forget that. So the early you there means you're listening to understand, not listening to reply. It's two different things. It's two different things. What I see that many realtors do that they are most of the time when a prospect is talking to them, they are barely listening to just reply, and their reply is already pre-formatted at the back of their mind, right? Their reply most of the time doesn't even align with the pain point or with what the prospect is saying at that point. But because they have not understood that they must listen and understand first, they will make the same mistakes that they have been making, which is in feeding the prospect the same junk they have been feeding other prospects that have not been buying. So the first part of the formula is early. You must learn to understand. You must learn to understand, not learn to reply. It's two different things. So you must learn to understand, then you reply with a question. Until a prospect comes to a point where they are willing to drop their money for a property, you are forbidden to reply just for the formality of replying. Let me repeat. Until a prospect opens their purse or their bank app and sends you money for a property or sends the company you're selling for a property, you are forbidden to reply for the sake of replying. You must keep asking questions until you have a headway as to where the problem is coming from. Remember, objections are only symptoms of underlying problems. Objections are only the symptoms. The root cause of the disease, of the problem, is the things they are not saying. And for you to be able to uncover those causes, you must be able to master the art of asking the right questions. So, you can only ask the right questions when you listen to understand. I've seen many people. A client will be telling you that I don't like this location. And it's not like you're even giving the client enough value proposition to not like the location. You begin to say a lot of things that doesn't necessarily answer to their objections. That is because you have not listened to understand. You're only giving out the client some time to talk so that you can talk your own. We are not doing talk, I talk. You are in a negotiation. And a negotiation simply means you must speak to the purpose, you must speak to the pains, you must speak to the fear of this prospect. If you are not speaking to those things, you are barely just wasting your time, you're wasting your energy. I hope this is being understood, right? You must always speak to the pain, to the purpose, and to the fear of this prospect. And that forms the later part of the formula, which is PPF. So the first P there stands for purpose. You must always understand the purpose of an investment, of a client's investment, or you must help the client to define a purpose. Your job is to rather understand the purpose of this client's investment or help him or her to define his purpose or her purpose. One thing I've understood in the industry is that many people are buying properties for the sake of it. Many of them don't necessarily tie a purpose around it. Many, I'm not saying all of them, many of the prospects are just buying properties for the sake of it. They're not buying properties with any intention at the back of their mind. Probably because of a bandwagon effect, a friend of them theirs bought, so they thought it is important for them also to add up to their property portfolio. Many of these people, that's how they buy out of emotions. So majority of the time, many of these people doesn't even know why they're buying. Your job as a consultant, as a qualified real estate consultant, is to help them define a purpose, which forms the first P here in the formula. For those who are just joining us, we are looking at the first set of formula you must have at the back of your mind before you begin to deal with objections. If you don't have this formula at the back of your mind, you're bound to make mistakes. You're bound to lose out on the sale. You're bound to appear like you don't know what you're doing. The first part of the formula is LU, which means listening to understand, not listening to reply, which is what many of the realtors do. Then the other part of the formula is PPF, which the first P is the purpose. You must understand the purpose of this investment. Why is this person out to invest in properties? Now, why is he interested in buying properties? And for most of them that doesn't even know why they are, it's your job to help them define their purpose. And this can also come from you being able to ask the right questions. Now, let me give you an expo, a secret that's going to help you in life, not just in business. You must learn how to ask the right questions. It's a skill set. If possible, go and take courses around it. It's a skill set you must have as a salesperson, as a business person. You are. Remember, you're an entrepreneur. So you must learn how to ask the right questions. And learning how to ask the right question comes from listening to understand, which helps you to help the person define their purpose. The second P here is pain. Many people in this part of the world who are out to buy real estate have a lot of trauma around pain of loss of investment, or from stories of friends and family who have lost theirs. So you have a great deal of work to do with answering their pain points, helping them overcome their pains and their past experiences. You need to master how to do that. And that can only come from being able to listen to understand. Then the last part of the formula is F, which stands for fear. You must understand that one of the things that holds prospects and clients back from buying is the fear that they have at the back of their mind. Yeah, they are always very much scared about the whole process, especially in this part of the world. So you must understand that you must master how to answer their fears also, and this can also come from you being able to listen to understand. So you see, the latter part of the formula lies heavily or draws its essence from the first part of the formula, which is listening to understand. Now let's go, and now that we've been able to establish the formula on how you can be able to overcome objections and rejections as a real estate salesperson, as a real estate consultant, now we are heading straight to looking at some of these objections and how you can literally be able to answer them. Any questions so far? All right. So the first very common objections that many realtors get at the marketplace is this land is far, or the land is far. So when a prospect, a client tells you the land is far, you should understand that they are talking about purpose here. They are talking about all they are asking of is they want to align this particular investment to a purpose. So you now need to begin to establish what this means for them. But what does far mean to this person? Is it that it's far from their home? Is it that it's far from their office? Is that it's far from the city center? Is it that it's far from a particular development that they like in the city? Is it that it's far from their family house? You need to establish what they mean by far. Remember, I said you must ask questions, and the way to establish this concept is by asking questions. What do you mean by far, sir? Is it that it is far from your home, it's far from your office, it's far from your children's school, it's far from security outfit, it's far from the city center? What do you mean by it is far? Yeah. So at this point, what they are looking at is purpose. They are looking at purpose. They are looking at purpose. You must be able to understand what they mean by far, before you begin to recommend anything to them. They must, by themselves, explain to you what they mean by far. Don't jump in and answer for your prospect or your client. When a client tells you a said property is far, it is not your job to jump in and begin to explain to them what they mean by far. You're not in their mind. 99% of the time, you're going to be wrong. So it is important you help them establish what they mean by the property is far by asking them the right questions, like, by far, sir, do you mean far from your home, from your office, from your children's schools, from your security outfit, from the city center, from a particular development in town that you love, or from a particular area you would love to stay or build or invest? What do you mean by far? So they are trying to justify their purpose. You must be able to learn how to help them establish their purpose. So one of the ways you can help to also make this make sense to them is to be someone who is authority, who has been able to build some sort of authority in the industry, right? One of the ways you can be able to help them navigate through this is by coming through as someone who's an authority figure in the real estate sales space, and I'll talk more about that in subsequent editions, how you can do that. But first of all, you must learn how to ask the right questions. The right questions. Another thing is, how can I trust you? When it comes to how can I trust you, what the prospect is trying to only establish is your character and your branding as a realtor. They want to understand, they want to trust you, they want to know who you are, they want to know the brand and the brand you represent. This is what the prospect is only talking about. Yeah, so they must be able to you need to be trustworthy, you need to be trusted, and this can only happen if you have some sort of footprint that this prospect can actually latch on. And that is why I'm always heavy on realtors being visible, realtors projecting their craft and their skill set out there so that the world can see, because on the day of reckoning will always come. The day of reckoning is even the next call away, is the next chat away, is the next inspection away. So the day of reckoning is not very far from you. So as a realtor, when you are hiding yourself or you are being very diplomatic about your hustle, there is high possibility that you're going to miss out on a lot of sales because you have not been able to build a lot of trust out there in the marketplace. I mean, you don't show up, people don't know you, no recommendation. How do you expect to sell a lot of things? Now, one thing that many great realtors leverage on is recommendation, the power of recommendation and referrals, and that is where majority of the sales come from. Because if you're able to service one prospect so well, and you make sure that this prospect is well serviced and is satisfied, the prospect can refer you to a lot of his friends. Then secondly, if you're a realtor who has been able to show forth and show through across everywhere in your space, people that follow you have gotten to a point where they can literally trust. I mean, you build some form of social capital. People now trust you, people now love you, people now understand that this is what you measure in. People can easily recommend you, but if people cannot necessarily point you to something, for example, people cannot look at you and say, this person, what he does really or totally is selling real estate. You are leaving a room for doubt at the back of your mind. How do I mean? Probably you don't show up daily talking about real estate, educating your audience about the importance of real estate and investment and money market and finance and all these things. If you don't show up every day to talk about it virtually, you are actually shortchanging yourself because you are not helping to build your brand and build trust around it. Hope that makes sense. So when it comes to trust, what the client is or the prospect is trying to ask is, he's scared and he wants to know your character. He's trying to handle the issue of fear. He's trying to handle the issue of fear. So you must always learn how to justify fear with character, and branding is important. Very, very important. Remember, you can be trustworthy and not be trusted. So you must always learn how to back your character with branding. So if somebody that has character, that probably you work with a reputable real estate company, but you're not visible, you see that you are trustworthy, but you yourself personally, you can't be trusted. Your brand is giving you some trust and leverage, but your personal attitude and your inability to show forth and show through is helping to rob you of your greatness. So you must always understand that, and also remember that projection equals perception. People don't care about how much you care until they see how much you care. So you must always show up. There is no diplomacy when it comes to selling real estate. All right. We continue. The next very common objection that people get, most realtors get in the marketplace, is it is in the bush. This sounds like it is far, but it's not. It's not same with is far, and it still ties down to purpose, right? It still ties down to purpose. So the first one, it is far, means that the person has not gone to see the place. It means that the person is still hearing a location. In you mentioning a location to the person, probably the person lives at Peter Lane. You're mentioning issue, but to the person, literally the person will tell you it's far. So that's that's the concept of the first one I talked about, which is it is far. This second one is in the bush. It means that the person has actually come to see the place, or the person have a knowledge about how the place actually is. The place you are mentioning, the person know the place exactly, either by visiting there before now or at the point of inspection. So what the person is still trying to ask inaudibly is the question of purpose, right? The person is trying to define the purpose of this investment. Since this is in the bush, how do you think that this investment is going to help my money? That's what the person is saying behind the curtain. So you need to understand that this is what the person is, and your job at that point is still understand what he or she means by the bush, right? What do you mean by it's in the bush? Ask that question. Let the person understand. And this also will challenge your knowledge about the location that you're trying to sell to this prospect. If you don't have a robust knowledge on the projection of this location you're selling, if you don't even know the history of this location, how far that location has come, and where it is headed, you will necessarily not be able to convince this prospect to see beyond the bush that the prospect or the client is seeing at the moment. So you must have a robust knowledge about the location that you have brought the way of this prospect, of this client at this point, for you to be able to answer the issue of this property is in the bush. Remind you, it still ties to the part of the formula which speaks so much on purpose. So the client is only trying to define purpose here. Also, the next any questions so far, please? We are looking at some of the common objections and how to overcome them. Any questions so far? All right, we head on. So the next common objection that you will get at the marketplace is it's expensive. It's expensive. And what the prospect is literally asking for here is the purpose and the perceived value. They want to understand, they want to get the perceived value of this product. Until they have a perceived value, a product will remain expensive at the back of the mind of a prospect. And what is perceived value? Perceived value is as a result of the value you have been able to explain to this prospect about the product itself. So what have you told this prospect about this product? Yeah, what have you told this prospect? What is the value proposition? I'm trying to use some language that you can understand. What is your value? What are you communicating to this prospect? Have you been able to justify the value of this prospect before mentioning the price? For example, if a particular product is going for example, a particular product is going for 5 million naira, you must be able to propose a value that is worth 10 million in the mind of this prospect. It means that you must let the prospect understand that in as much as this property is priced at 5 million, it is a kill for him or her. And that comes from the amount of value you've been able to propose to this prospect. And this goes a long way to challenge your knowledge about the industry and the market and the real estate market. It's going to challenge you. So you must understand, and this also ties a little bit to the history of the location of the product and the future of the location of the product. You don't sell the current value of the product. No, you are forbidden as a salesperson to sell it. You sell the future and derive context from the past. You sell the future and derive context from the past. So you must know the past and the future of the product you have in your hands at the moment. That is how you can be able to answer the issue of it is expensive. So you must be able to Understand the perceived value and communicate it effectively to the prospect before you even mention the price. And if you're unable to justify the perceived value of a product, then abuse of that product is inevitable. There is high probability that the prospect is not going to buy from you. So before mentioning the price of the product, make sure you have been able to establish value worth more than the price you are slapping on that product. Hope that's clear. The next objection that you will encounter in the marketplace, and the way to overcome it, is I cannot afford it. In as much as many of the times these people might genuinely not be able to afford it, but you must understand that most of the time it is not true. They are only trying so hard to get you off their skin so that they can move on to the next thing in their life. Remember, human beings are emotionally attached to their money. They are emotional about it. So if they must spend their money, it must be something that appeals to an emotion that they carry. So when a prospect tells you I cannot afford it, he's only looking at budgeting. He's looking at budgeting at the moment. Most of the time, they are looking at their budget. So you must, if for every genuine, you've been able to ask for the question at this point, the prospect says I cannot afford it, and you have done all your questions, you have asked all your questions, you've truly come to the point to understand that this prospect really cannot afford this product. Your job next is to propose the next best alternative within their range of budgets. Your purpose here is, in order not to lose out totally, is to propose the next best alternative of property within their budget. Hope that is clear. So when a prospect tells you I cannot afford it, they're literally telling you it's a budget issue, and sometimes it could also mean purpose issue. Probably you've not been able to establish a lot of value on the table. Sorry, passive value is a passive value issue. You have not been able to establish a lot of value on the table, so they are looking at it like it's not worth their money. So one of the fastest way they can easily get you out of their skin is to tell you that they cannot afford it, which is another way to say it is expensive. So you must always understand that.